Hello, everyone, or anyone. I just want to do a fairly short sort of update on COVID-19 and a few things I wanted to mention. Uh, the first is Sweden and how they're handling COVID-19. This is an article from, it's actually via unheard.com that I saw on Zero Hedge, so I'll go to the original. Unheard. It's unheard.com. Unheard. Okay, and it's from Friday, April 17th, and it's entitled Swedish Expert, Why Lockdowns Are the Wrong Policy. I'll put a link to the description on this. Quote, that was one of the most blah, 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 blah. Quote, Professor Johan Giesecke, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that, Johan Giesecke, one of the world's most senior epidemiologists, advisor to the Swedish government. He hired, quote, he hired Anders Tegnell, who is currently directing Swedish strategy. He is the first chief strategist of the European Center for Disease Prevention and Control and an advisor to the Director General of the WHO, World Health Organization. Lays out with typically Swedish bluntness why he thinks A, UK policy on lockdown in other European countries are not evidence-based. B, I'm adding the ABC part. B, the correct policy is to protect the old and the frail only, which I said in my other videos. Not that he cares what I think. C, this will eventually lead to herd immunity as a byproduct. D, the initial UK response before the 180-degree U-turn was better. Basically, he's saying what several people are saying, what I was saying. Oh, he also says COVID-19 is a mild disease and similar to the flu, and it was the novelty of the disease that scared people. Another one, the actual fatality rate of COVID-19 is the region of 0.1%. At least 50% of the population of both the UK and Sweden will be shown to have already had the disease when mass antibody testing becomes available. The flattening of the lockdown is due to the most vulnerable dying first as much as the lockdown. The results will eventually be similar for all countries. Again, I'll put a link to this, but this is a guy who's, a big shot in this thing. And he's saying what I've been saying, what many people have been saying, is that, this is being gigantically overblown. And what's Sweden doing different? Well, I have an article, put a link in the description, from the Daily Wire on April 14th this year. It's titled, Is Sweden's Relaxed COVID-19 Response Actually Working? And it says, as the coronavirus rampage cost Europe, blah, 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 blah. Though Sweden has quarantined its nursing homes, banned gatherings of over 50 people, and moved higher education online, the country has also allowed lower education, gyms, bars, and restaurants to stay operational. This is exactly what I was saying from the beginning, or near the beginning. And others have been saying too, many others. Not enough others, but several others. That if you're under 50, you have a very, very, you have a much, much greater chance of dying in a car crash in America than you do of dying of COVID-19, even if you get it, if you're under 50. And that's based on everyone under 50, not just people who have weakened immune systems and or have serious health issues. That's everyone. It was, and even lower education, and I'll get to that. But before I get to the numbers of lower education, and very young people, I want to let's look at the death rate and how things are going in Sweden. They've taken this very, you might say liberal, I don't know what you'd call it. It's, some would probably call it irrational, irresponsible. I think it's very rational way of handling it. And how are their new cases going? Well, if you look at, again, I'll leave a note in the description, link in the description, that's what I mean. from worldometers.info/coronavirus. Can't speak today. And very well. And how are they doing? I go down to daily new cases in Sweden. Well, they have a bar graph here, and it's and basically it was at its peak at around early April, and it's going up and down, but basically it's going down now. It's definitely flatlined, and or flattened out. Flatten the curve is the big thing, or they say, and it's definitely done that. Well, let's look at something like the UK. Same thing, same place. Worldometers.info/coronas. Coronavirus. Coronas? Coronavirus. And let's look at them. Yeah, around our April 9th, 10th, that's when it peaked. And now it's flattened out. Well, they've both flattened out. And yet UK, and what is UK's, what do they do? UK's, in case you don't live in the UK, this is from the Telegraph, and this is from April 21st. UK coronavirus lockdown. What are the rules and when will it be lifted? The government has closed schools, pubs, restaurants, cafes, gyms, and other businesses now under new lockdown measures. So they've gone the opposite of Sweden. They've locked everything down. And has it made a difference compared to Sweden? No, Sweden's is flattened out, and UK's is flattened out. In terms of active cases, they're going up. Actually, the UK's is going up faster than Sweden's. You can't compare total numbers because obviously there's a lot more UKers, Brits, than there is Swedes. But basically, it's flatlined. The curve is flattened in Sweden and it's flattened in the UK, and yet Sweden if you listen to the quote unquote experts who would probably have said, well, Sweden does that, that's irresponsible, and the cases are going to go through the roof. Well, guess what? It didn't happen that way. So that was a nonsense. And what about total deaths? We can't go by total, but how's the curve looking? Curve in Sweden is about the same as UK. You know, it's kind of tapering off, just like in the UK, it's starting to taper off. So there was little difference with all these added things. Now, when we get all the numbers in a couple, maybe there's access to numbers that I can't find. But when we get the numbers in a few months or years or whatever it'll be, then we can tell for sure. But it's obvious that Sweden is not having a massive rampage of people dying of this thing and getting it. I mean, they're just not. So the notion that that what they did is irresponsible and wrong is clearly being showed to be untrue. And let's look at, and I just want to look at population comparison. So there's 66 million people in UK, and roughly 10 million people in Sweden. So about 6.5 times as many people in the UK as in Sweden. Now let's look. I'm looking at worldometers.info/coronavirus, and I'm looking at the totals for the nations around the world. And so far, the UK has had 17,000 deaths. And Sweden, which has had 1,700 deaths. So they've had 1/10 the number of deaths, yet they have they have 10%, 16% of the population, but they've only had 10% of the deaths. If you go by what the quote unquote experts say, then the Sweden should be off the chart in deaths, but it's not. It's actually got a lower death rate than the UK in terms of lower number of deaths per capita than the UK. I'm just using the UK as an example. I mean, it could be any country. Let's look at, France is a roughly similar size population. They've got 20,000 deaths, so they've got even more. So it's not working that way. Now it's a little difficult to tell because some countries count deaths differently than others. Some countries, they'll count a COVID-19 death even if they die of a stroke. They'll just say, but if they were tested positive for COVID-19, they'll say, well, he died of COVID-19, even if he didn't, he or she. So it's hard to tell. But I'm just going on total deaths based on per capita. Again, it's tough to tell because Germany is a much lower rate and they've got much more people. So maybe they're just listing deaths logically. that if they died of a stroke, they put down a stroke, not COVID-19. So again, this is all going to come out in the mix eventually. But anyway, the point is that Sweden's numbers are not going through the roof, even though they took on a much more lax approach and a much smarter approach, in my opinion, than most other countries have. So kudos to the Swedes. As far as I know, I have no Swedish blood in me, so I don't have any loyalty to them, especially. I just kudos to the Swedes. And naughty to the UK and everybody else who overreacted, which is most of the country. Just one other thing about the UK. In the Express, this was from April 8th. Again, I'll put a link in the description. Britain to remain on lockdown for a year to beat coronavirus, says science activist Boris Johnson's science advisors. Oh, well, that's freaking brilliant. So we're just seeing that the lockdown's not doing any good, and yet you're going to destroy the economy for even longer. Oh, that's freaking great. Next, I'd like to look at I look at this a lot because they give good statistics. This is the New York State Department of Health, the fatalities page. Really upbeat. Obviously not. And they seem to update it every day or two. This data is as of the 20th of April this year. But the U.S. has a big. New York has a lot. They have 256,000 plus cases right now, so it's a pretty good source for data because there's a lot of people there, and they're giving pretty decent statistics. Now, the one I look at first is I still can't pronounce it. Comorbidities. Basically, if you, just look up the definition in medicine. Comorbidity is the presence of one or more additional conditions co-occurring with a primary condition. So, in other words, what this means, this list that I'm about to read is people that have died of COVID-19 that have serious other health issues. And it says 89% of all those that have died in New York State, 14,828 that have died in New York State, 89% of those had at least one serious health issue. And that percentage keeps going up every day. I read it, I look at it almost every day, and it's going up every day. And it's in line with what's going on around the world, which is like 90 to 95% of the people that I've seen, on statistics I have seen, of the people that die of this thing have a serious at least one serious health issue. And again, this is proving it again. This is kill. And by the way, for comorbidity, they're not listing weakened immune system, which I think they should. So, because that definitely can be affected by this. But anyway, so it could be even higher than that. But anyway, that's that. And then if you look at fatalities by age group, again, the numbers, I mean, you've got out of 14,828 deaths in New York State, 7 were under 19. 7. 57 were 20 to 29. 231 were 30 to 39. And 548 were 40 to 49. So 5.7, just 5.7 of all the deaths in New York State from COVID-19 were to people, and irrelevant of their health condition, were people 49 and under. So hardly anyone. I'm sure those people that died didn't think they were hardly anyone, but hopefully you know what I mean. Even 50 to 59, it's only 9.9. In fact, there's 90 and over is 12%. Everybody 60 and over, it's like 51, 61, about 60, 2/3 of those are people over 70. Over 80% are over 60. So basically, if you're a senior, and since seniors tend to have more health issues, obviously, than younger people on average, they're the ones who are dying. They're the ones, it's people with serious health issues. That's the one. It's just like Sweden did. It's like that fellow said that big head honcho dude. I'll look up his name. Did I throw it out already? I tossed something out as soon as I finished reading it. Yeah, I did. No, I didn't. Here it is. Johan Gisecki. Anyway, this Swedish government epidemiologist, and he and I are agreeing on this. Obviously, he doesn't care what I think, but that this is being overblown. You don't need to shut everything down. Just put people who are at risk, who are people who have serious health issues and who are older, and and tell them they should be quarantined, and then help them if they need it financially, and let everyone else get back to work. Sweden has more or less done that. Even they didn't. Even they went farther than I would have. But if I was them, but still, they've done it. They've been logical about it. They've been reasonable, and they are having no more problems on a per capita basis than UK. In fact, they have less deaths on a per capita basis than the UK does. So anyway, that's just my update for this. I'm sure you were on pins. I'm sure you're just desperate to know what I think about it. But anyway, now you do. So as before, just more evidence that this is an insane amount of overreaction, and not just by the governments, but by the media, but also by the people who are blindly following like sheep whatever they're told to do. And they panic a little, so they just go, oh, we're so scared. One last time, if you're under 50 or even under 60, certainly if you're under 50 and you have no serious health issues, even if you're just under 50, the chances of you dying of this thing are extremely remote. So anyway, now I've said that 162 times. Well, everyone take care. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.